A little black girl in a red dress comes flying across a Brooklyn parking lot, cast dragging, tears streaming, crutches barely keeping her upright. She's running straight toward 12 Hell's Angels, the kind of men everybody else crosses the street to avoid, and she's screaming at the top of her lungs. "Help me! They broke my leg. They're coming back for me right now." Coffee cups stop mid-air. Bearded faces turn. The whole block freezes. She crashes into the biggest one, grabs his leather cut with both tiny fists, and sobs. "Please don't let them take me again." One heartbeat of dead silence. Then Ryder Maddox, vice president, tattoos up to his eyes, drops to a knee in the gravel, cups her face gentle as morning, and growls soft. "Who did this to you, sweetheart?" She whispers a name that turns his eyes to fire. He stands. Looks at his brothers. One nod. 12 engines explode to life like the sky ripping open. And family. I need you to hear me when I tell you, what happened next didn't just save one little girl. It changed an entire city forever. Hit that like button right now if you believe angels sometimes wear leather, because this story is about to take your breath away. And right then, before we go any further, let me just say, my beautiful family and friends, welcome back. If you're ready for another unforgettable story, do me a quick favor, hit that like button. Because every like tells YouTube this story is worth sharing with someone who might really need hope today. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. I read every single one, and it feels like we're sitting together, heart to heart. Share this with someone you love. You never know, this might be the encouragement they've been praying for. And if you're new here, go ahead and hit subscribe and the bell so you never miss a story. This isn't just a channel, it's family. Now, let's get back to little Amara. The biggest of them, Ryder Maddox, vice president, arms covered in ink, face that could stop traffic, set his coffee down slow, like the world had just gone quiet. He walked forward while his brothers stayed rooted in place, and he dropped to one knee in the hot gravel so she wouldn't have to look up. Amara collapsed against his chest, crutches clattering to the ground, sobbing so hard her whole body shook. Ryder didn't say much, just rested one huge hand gently on her back and let her cry. When she could finally breathe, she whispered something that turned his eyes the color of a coming storm. He stood up, looked at his brothers, and gave one sharp nod. Engines roared awake like angry thunder. 12 Harleys peeled out of that parking lot in perfect formation, tires screaming, leaving clouds of smoke and stunned silence behind them. And somewhere 2 blocks away, a black van was still circling, looking for the little girl who got away. But to understand why those men were ready to ride through hell for a child most of Brooklyn was scared to even look at, we have to go back to the night Amara's leg was shattered on cold concrete stairs, and the powerful man who ordered it thought fear would be enough to silence a judge. Family, come close. Let me take you back up a little, because to really feel what happened that morning in Brooklyn, you have to understand the night that almost ended everything for 7-year-old Amara. It was 3 weeks earlier. Rain hammered the windows of Judge Lisa Jarman's brownstone like it was trying to get inside. Lisa had just come home from a long day in court, robe still draped over her arm, when her phone lit up with a call from Amara's school. The little girl had stayed late for art club. She should have been home by now. Lisa's heart dropped the second she heard the scream on the other end of the line. 2 men in dark hoodies were waiting in the stairwell of the apartment building. They had been paid very well by a man named George Swain, a contractor who smiled for cameras but broke bones when the cameras weren't looking. Swain was facing serious charges in Lisa's courtroom, and he had sent a message, the clearest message he could think of: hurt the thing she loves most. Amara never saw them coming. One grabbed her backpack. The other clamped a hand over her mouth. She kicked, she bit, she fought with everything a second grader has. But they were big, and she was small. When she wouldn't stop screaming, one of them lifted her like she weighed nothing and slammed her little body against the concrete stairs. Once. Twice. The crack of bone was louder than the rain. They left her there, crumpled and crying, whispering that Auntie Lisa better make the right decision in court if she ever wanted to see her niece walk again. Lisa found her 20 minutes later. Blood on the steps. Amara's red sneaker lying sideways 3 flights up. The judge, always so strong, always the one holding the gavel, fell to her knees and screamed her niece's name until her voice gave out. She carried Amara down every single stair in her arms, whispering promises through tears that no one would ever hurt her again. But promises are hard to keep when the man who ordered the attack owns half the city. After the hospital, Lisa brought Amara home and turned her apartment into a fortress. Windows locked. Curtains drawn. Lights low. She slept on the couch with her service revolver on the coffee table, something no one who knows Judge Jarman would have believed a month earlier. Every night Amara heard her aunt crying quietly in the dark, thinking the little girl was asleep. Amara would pull the blanket over her head and whisper back, "I'm not scared, Auntie. I'm not," even though both of them knew it wasn't true. The cast went from toes to thigh. Purple bruises bloomed across her brown skin like storm clouds. And every time the pain medicine wore off, Amara would bite her lip so she wouldn't cry too loud and make her aunt feel worse. 3 weeks of hiding. 3 weeks of looking over shoulders. 3 weeks of waiting for the next knock that never came. Until that Saturday morning. Lisa had to leave for court prep. There was no way to postpone the Swain trial forever. She kissed Amara's forehead 1,000 times, made sure the deadbolt was locked, the chain was on, and the alarm set. "I'll be back before lunch, baby. Don't open the door for anyone." Amara nodded, brave smile, clutching her favorite stuffed giraffe. The second the elevator doors closed, the men came back. They used a key. Someone on the inside had been paid. Amara heard the click of the lock and knew. She dropped her cereal bowl, milk splashing across the floor like white blood. She grabbed her crutches, heart hammering so loud she could barely hear their footsteps. Back door. Fire escape. That was the plan she and Auntie had practiced. She pushed the window open, summer heat rushing in, and swung her casted leg over the sill. The metal stairs burned hot under her bare foot. One crutch slipped, clattered 4 stories down. She almost fell after it, but she caught the railing, tears, sweat, terror, all mixing together. Behind her, the apartment door splintered. She didn't look back. Down she went, hop by hop, pain shooting up her leg like fire, until she hit the alley. People on the sidewalk stared, phones out, mouths open, but no one reached for her. No one stopped the little girl limping for her life. Until she turned the corner onto Flatbush and saw them. A row of shining Harleys. Leather vests catching the sun. Men built like walls, laughing over coffee. Everyone else in Brooklyn crossed the street when they saw that patch. But Amara? Amara looked at those big scarred, tattooed arms and thought the only thought a terrified 7-year-old had left. If anyone is strong enough to save me, it's them. She tightened her grip on the one crutch she still had, wiped her face with the back of her hand, and ran straight toward the monsters everyone else was afraid of. And family, if you feel that lump in your throat right now, go ahead and hit that like button. Let YouTube know stories like this, stories of little girls who refuse to give up, deserve to be heard. Drop where you're watching from in the comments. I'm reading every single one while I'm writing the next chapter for you. Because what happened the moment Amara reached those bikers? That's where the miracle began. Family, close your eyes for a second and listen to the sound of 12 Harley engines waking up all at once. That low, guttural growl that rattles windows and shakes ribs. That was the sound Brooklyn heard the moment Ryder Maddox made his decision. He didn't shout. He didn't have to. One look from him, eyes like cold steel under the morning sun, and every man in that parking lot knew this wasn't a discussion. This was war. Ryder lifted Amara into his arms as gently as if she were made of blown glass. Her little body was still trembling, but she buried her face in his leather cut like it was the safest place on earth. He carried her through the diner doors himself, past the frozen waitress and the wide-eyed cook, and set her on the counter beside the register. "Lock the doors. Nobody in or out till we're back," he told the owner, Voice low, calm, absolute. The old man who'd served coffee to Hell's Angels for 20 years didn't argue. The deadbolt clicked like a gunshot. Outside, the chapter moved like a single animal. Ryder raised one fist. 12 bikes rolled into perfect staggered formation, 6 on the left of the street, 6 on the right, engines snarling in unison. He dropped his hand, and they exploded forward. If you've never heard a pack of Harleys running flat out through city streets, let me paint it for you. Tires screaming on hot asphalt. Chrome flashing like lightning. The roar bouncing off brownstones and rolling under the bridges like thunder that refuses to stop. People on sidewalks jumped back, clutching children, phones already up. Mothers covered their kids' ears. Old men on stoops crossed themselves. They fanned out exactly the way soldiers do when they're hunting. 2 bikes peeled left down Nostrand, 2 shot right on Bedford. For thundered straight up Flatbush, cutting off every escape route. The rest swept the side streets, alleys, the abandoned lots behind the laundromat where the city forgets to look. Ryder rode point, jaw locked, tattoos rippling every time he leaned into a turn. He didn't need to speak into the headset. Every brother knew brother. They moved like they'd rehearsed this 1,000 times, only this time the prey wasn't rival colors. This time it was 3 grown men who thought breaking a little girl's leg was just business. They found the van in less than 4 minutes. Black, no plates, circling slow 2 blocks over like sharks that lost the scent. The driver saw the wall of bikes too late. Ryder came in from the front, cutting the nose off. 2 brothers boxed the rear. The others closed the sides so fast the van had nowhere to go but the curb. Metal screeched. Tires blew. The smell of burned rubber rose like smoke from a battlefield. Doors flew open. 3 men jumped out running on adrenaline and bad decisions. The first one made it 4 steps before a biker twice his size lifted him clean off the ground and drove him into the sidewalk. The second tried for a gun under his jacket. Stupid move. Ryder was already there. One hand clamped the wrist, twisted, and the pistol clattered across the pavement like a dropped toy. A knee to the ribs folded the man in half. No wasted motion. No rage, just cold, practiced efficiency. The third thug actually raised his hands, eyes wide, realizing the stories about the Angels weren't stories at all. In less than 30 seconds, it was over. 3 men face down on hot concrete, wrists zip-tied with the kind of plastic cuffs the club keeps for exactly these moments. Engines still ticking as they cooled. Blood on the asphalt, but none of it belonging to the bikers. Sirens were already coming, but the brothers didn't move. They stood guard over their prisoners like wolves over a fresh kill. And that's when the phones really came out. People poured from apartments, from bodegas, from the halal cart on the corner. Dozens of cameras pointed at the impossible scene. Hell's Angels in full colors pinning child kidnappers to the ground while a little black girl's red dress and crutches lay abandoned beside a diner 2 blocks away. Somebody shouted, "They saved her." The bikers saved that baby. The video went up before the first patrol car even braked. Within minutes, it was everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Brooklyn group chats. People sharing with captions like, "I can't believe what I just saw, and never thought I'd say this, but thank God for the Hell's Angels." Police arrived expecting a bloodbath. Instead they found Ryder standing calm, arms crossed, while his brothers kept the suspects silent and still. An officer who'd arrested half these men before just stared, mouth open, before finally muttering, "You want to tell me what the hell just happened here?" Ryder looked him dead in the eye. "Little girl needed help. We helped. And family, if your heart is pounding right now, do me a favor, hit that like button hard. Let's get this story to every corner of the world, because the world needs to remember that real heroes don't always wear badges. Sometimes they wear leather and ride thunder." Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever seen strangers become family in a single moment? I'm reading every word. Because what happened when Judge Lisa Jarman pulled up to that diner and saw who was guarding her niece? Oh, y'all aren't ready. But we're going there next. Stay with me. Family, picture this. Judge Lisa Jarman, the same woman who can silence a courtroom with one raised eyebrow, is sitting in her chambers, reviewing evidence, when her phone buzzes with an unknown Brooklyn number. She almost lets it go to voicemail. Something makes her answer. Judge Jarman? This is Sergeant Alvarez, 71st Precinct. Your niece is safe, but you need to come to the Silver Spoon Diner on Flatbush. Right now. She doesn't remember dropping the phone. She doesn't remember grabbing her keys or running every red light between downtown and Flatbush. All she knows is the sound of her own heartbeat and the prayer looping in her head. Please let her be alive. Please let her be alive. When she screeches into the parking lot, the scene hits her like a physical blow. Police cruisers block the street. Yellow tape flaps in the hot wind. A dozen Harleys sit in perfect formation like soldiers at attention. And in the middle of it all, sitting on a diner counter visible through the big plate glass window, is Amara, alive, casted leg swinging, sipping chocolate milk through a straw while a giant bearded man in a Hell's Angels cut carefully wipes ice cream off her chin. Lisa's knees almost give out right there on the asphalt. She pushes past two officers, badge already in her hand, voice cracking. That's my niece. Let me through. The second the bell over the diner door jingles, Amara's head snaps up. Auntie Lisa. She tries to slide off the counter too fast, wobbles, and Ryder is there in an instant, one massive hand steadying her so gently it doesn't even look real. Lisa crosses the room in 4 strides and pulls Amara into her arms, so hard the little girl squeaks. Tears come hot and instant, soaking both their faces. For a long moment the only sounds are Lisa's broken sobs and Amara whispering, "I'm okay, Auntie. They helped me. They really helped me." That's when Lisa finally looks up, and realizes the diner is full of leather cuts and patched vests. Every dangerous man she's ever sent to prison seems to be standing in this room, and every single one of them is watching her niece's new hero. Her arms tighten around Amara. Instinct kicks in, judge, protector, lioness. She straightens, eyes narrowing, voice dropping into the same icy tone she uses on murderers in her courtroom. Somebody needs to explain to me right now why my 7-year-old niece is surrounded by the Hell's Angels. The room goes still. A couple of cops outside shift awkwardly. They've never seen a judge square up to an entire motorcycle club before. Ryder steps forward, slow, palms open, no sudden moves. He doesn't come too close. Just close enough for her to see the truth in his eyes. "Ma'am, your little girl ran to us because nobody else would help her. 3 men tried to take her. Again. We stopped them. That's the whole story." Lisa's gaze flicks to the window, 3 zip-tied suspects face down on the sidewalk, patrol cars everywhere, then back to Ryder. She searches his face the way she searches defendants for lies. She doesn't find any. One of the younger bikers, big guy they call Bear, is still holding Amara's remaining crutch like it's made of gold. Another has fashioned a makeshift ice pack out of a diner towel and is pressing it to the bruise blooming on Amara's arm. A third, tattoos up to his jaw, teardrops under one eye, is quietly braiding the little girl's hair so it stops sticking to her tear-stained cheeks. Every hard man in the room is moving soft around this child. And something in Lisa's chest, the part that's been clenched tight since the night on the stairs, finally cracks wide open. She sinks into the nearest booth, still holding Amara, and the tears come again, only quieter this time. Defeated, relieved, grateful tears. Ryder crouches so he's eye level with her, same way he did with Amara earlier. "I know what you're thinking," he says, voice low, steady. "You're thinking we want something. Payment. Favor. Headline. We don't. That little girl asked for help. We gave it. End of story." Lisa looks at Amara, who's clinging to her now but keeps reaching one small hand back toward Ryder like he's a lifeline. Ryder notices. He rests his huge hand over Amara's tiny one for just a second, gentle, protective. Then he looks Lisa dead in the eye and makes a promise that will echo through every courtroom and every street in Brooklyn for years to come. Nobody hurts that little girl again. Not while we breathe. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't need to. The promise lands like scripture. Outside, phones are still recording. Inside, a judge who has never once in her life asked for help realizes she's just been given an army she never expected. And family, if you feel that lump in your throat, if you're wiping tears right now, go ahead and hit that like button. Let's send this moment around the world. Because sometimes the people we're taught to fear are the exact ones God sends when the world turns its back. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever been surprised by who showed up when you needed them most? I'm reading every single one. Because next chapter? The man who started all of this, George Swain, just found out the Hells Angels declared war on him, and he's about to learn that some enemies you don't buy off. Stay close. We're just getting started. Family, come sit with me. The sun is going down over Brooklyn now, and the city looks calm from a distance, but underneath the streetlights a storm is building that nobody saw coming. George Swain is in the penthouse office of his glass tower on Court Street, watching the same viral videos everyone else is watching. Only he isn't crying. He isn't inspired. He's pacing like a caged animal, face purple, veins standing out on his neck. The little girl he paid to have broken is on every screen in America, sipping chocolate milk while Hell's Angels wipe her tears. The judge he tried to scare is hugging her in front of rolling cameras. And 12 outlaw bikers are being called heroes by people who used to cross the street to avoid them. He slams his fist on the mahogany desk so hard the crystal decanter jumps. Find out who authorized those animals to touch my property. He snarls at the room full of nervous lawyers and assistants. One of them dares to speak up. Sir, the police report says the child ran to them. They saved her. Swain turns so slowly it's scarier than shouting. Then change the report. And just like that, the machine starts turning. By midnight, the story begins to shift in certain corners of the city. A deputy commissioner who owes Swain favors puts out a memo questioning whether the Hells Angels used excessive force. A captain in the 71st gets transferred. The 3 men in custody suddenly have expensive new lawyers claiming police brutality and illegal detention by known felons. Someone leaks a story that the bikers were trying to kidnap Amara themselves and the van men were good Samaritans. Most of Brooklyn isn't buying it. The videos are too clear, the little girl's face too real, but the seeds are planted. Doubt creeps in where there was once only gratitude. Then come the threats. A courier delivers an envelope to Lisa's chambers. Photos of Amara playing in the park taken 2 days ago, a single line typed underneath. Accidents happen twice. Lisa doesn't sleep that night. She sits on the edge of Amara's bed with her service pistol in her lap, watching her niece breathe, wondering how much longer walls and locks will be enough. But George Swain made one mistake. He declared war on people who have never once in their lives backed down from a fight. Down at the clubhouse on a quiet block in Red Hook, the Hells Angels are doing what they do best, gathering intelligence the way other people gather firewood. Ryder sits at a scarred wooden table under a bare bulb, sleeves rolled up, ink telling stories most cops would faint reading. Around him are laptops, burner phones, printed DMV records, prison visitor logs, and 3 pizzas getting cold. They start with the van. No plates, but one of the brothers recognizes the custom tint job. Only one shop in Jersey does it that shade. A quick ride across the bridge and a quiet conversation later. They have a name. That name leads to a phone number. That phone number leads to a bank account in the Caymans. And that account? It was opened the same week George Swain's company won a $42 million city contract. Layer by layer, the way you peel an onion that makes you cry blood, they keep going. They find shell companies that don't build anything but hide money. They find girls who vanished from the Bronx and turned up in port containers headed overseas. They find judges, good men and women Lisa has shared a bench with for 20 years, taking envelopes in parking garages. They find a city councilman who cries when Bear shows up at his mistress's apartment with photographs. Within an hour, he's singing every note he knows. By sunrise, the table is covered in evidence that would make a federal prosecutor weep with joy. Ryder leans back, lights a cigarette, and exhales smoke like he's breathing out years of rage. "This isn't about one little girl anymore," he says quietly. The room nods. They all feel it. The line was crossed the night those men put hands on Amara, and now the whole rotten tree is going to burn. Meanwhile, something softer, something sacred, is happening on the other side of the bridge. Amara has not been back to the apartment since the second attack. Lisa tried one night, but Amara woke up screaming before the key even touched the lock. So Lisa did the only thing she could think of. She asked Ryder if the clubhouse had a spare room. They gave her the entire second floor. It smells like oil and old leather and coffee, but to Amara it smells like safety. The first afternoon, Bear, 6'6", arms like bridge cables, voice like a busted muffler, sits cross-legged on the floor and lets her paint his fingernails bright purple because purple is for warriors, sweetheart. Another brother teaches her how to play pool on a table older than her aunt. A prospect with a mohawk and a missing front tooth reads her bedtime stories in voices that make her laugh until her ribs hurt. And Ryder? Ryder becomes the shadow that never leaves her side. He carries her on his shoulders so her cast doesn't bump. He lets her fall asleep against his cut while he works, tiny fingers curled around one of his heavy silver rings like it's a lifeline. When the nightmares come, and they still come, he's the one who sits on the floor beside her bed until morning, humming old Johnny Cash songs under his breath until her breathing evens out again. One night Lisa walks in and finds Amara curled in Ryder's lap, both of them asleep in an old recliner. Amara's head is tucked under his chin, his huge arms wrapped around her like armor. On the table beside them is a coloring book open to a page where Amara has drawn the entire club, big stick-figure bikers with wings and halos, and in the middle, the tallest one holding a tiny girl in a red dress. Lisa stands in the doorway and cries the first silent, grateful tears she's allowed herself in weeks. Because for the first time since the night on the stairs, Amara is not afraid to close her eyes. And family, if your heart is full right now, if you're feeling that hope rising, do me a solid and smash that like button. Let's get this chapter in front of every person who thinks the world is too dark, because light is winning in places nobody expected. Drop a comment and tell me, when was the moment you realized the scariest-looking person in the room was actually the safest? I'm reading every single one. Because George Swain just sent his final warning, an envelope full of crime scene photos from the night Amara's leg was broken, delivered to the clubhouse gate with a note that says, "Finish the job or we finish hers." And the Hell's Angels? They don't send warnings back. They send receipts. Next chapter, Brooklyn catches fire. Stay with me. We're almost to the part where the real judge shows up, and it isn't the one wearing the robe. Family, lean in close, because this is the moment the whole city took a breath and chose a side. By Monday morning, the videos had broken the internet. Not just one clip, dozens. From every angle. The little girl in the red dress hobbling straight to the scariest men in Brooklyn. Engines roaring. Grown men hitting the ground. And then the quiet, tender shots inside the diner. A tattooed giant wiping ice cream off a child's chin while she giggled through tears. Hashtags were born overnight. Hashtag Angels in Leather. Hashtag Amara's Army. Hashtag Brooklyn protects its own. Church ladies shared the clips. Rappers stitched them. News anchors who usually only talk crime stats found themselves choking up on live television. Someone turned the audio of the Harleys into a ringtone, and it shot to #1 on iTunes. Murals started appearing on roll-down gates in Bed-Stuy and Bushwick. A tiny black girl with wings made of chrome, surrounded by leather-clad guardians. The same people who used to clutch their purses when a Harley rolled by were now walking up to the clubhouse gate with casseroles, homemade cookies, and handwritten thank-you notes addressed to Mr. Ryder and the Angels. A bodega owner hung a sign, "Free coffee for anyone wearing a red and white patch." Little kids started showing up in the donation jar. Public opinion didn't just flip, it did a full backflip and stuck the landing. And in the middle of all that love pouring in from the streets, Judge Lisa Jarman sat alone in her chambers staring at the same four walls that used to feel like power and now felt like a coffin. She had a choice closing in on her like a tunnel with no light at the end. On one side, the oath she took the day they put that black robe on her shoulders. Justice is blind. The law is neutral. A judge does not pick sides, does not bend, does not fear, does not favor. On the other side, a 7-year-old asleep down the hall who still wakes up screaming if a door slams too loud. Every night she rehearsed the same speech in her head. I will recuse myself. I will hand the case to another judge. I will keep Amara safe. And every morning she looked at the photos in that envelope, Amara's tiny broken body on cold concrete, and knew that stepping aside only guaranteed Swain would walk free to hurt the next child. So one evening, when the courthouse was empty and the city lights glittered across the East River like scattered diamonds, Lisa did something she never imagined she would do. She drove to the clubhouse herself. No escort. No call ahead. She walked through that gate in her courthouse heels and pearls, past the prospect who looked like he might faint, and straight up to Ryder, who was working on an old panhead under a single drop light. He didn't stand up right away. Just wiped his hands on a rag and waited. Lisa's voice shook, but she didn't look away. I'm supposed to be impartial, she said. I'm supposed to believe the system will protect us. But the system let those men into my building twice. The system is taking money from the man who broke my baby's leg. I don't know what to do anymore. Ryder listened the way he listens to engines, quiet, patient, hearing things most people miss. When she finished, he simply nodded once. You're not alone anymore, Judge. That was all. But it was enough. From that night on, the Hells Angels stopped playing defense. They went hunting. Not with guns in the street, they were smarter than that. They used the one thing George Swain never counted on, the same streets that raised them. A construction foreman who'd taken Swain bribes woke up to find his brand new pickup on blocks, every tire gone, and a polite note, we know about the girls in the container last June. Talk or the next thing missing is your freedom. He talked. A Port Authority officer who looked the other way when certain shipments moved at night opened his locker to find printed photos of his own daughter at school. No note needed. He started wearing a wire the same day. One by one, quietly, legally, relentlessly, the club turned Swain's empire into a house of cards with the bottom rows already pulled. They never touched a hair on anyone's head. They didn't have to. Fear has a way of traveling faster when the people carrying it ride Harleys and keep their promises. Swain felt the walls closing in. His lawyers stopped returning calls. His money started disappearing into frozen accounts. Witnesses he thought he owned were suddenly unavailable or worse, asking for immunity. So he did what cornered men always do. He decided to burn the board down. Late one Thursday, a burner phone lit up in a dark warehouse in East New York. 6 men, professionals this time, not local muscle, were offered triple the usual rate. The job was simple: hit the clubhouse after midnight, make it look like a rival club war, leave no witnesses who could talk. Especially not a little girl in a cast or a judge in pearls. They spent days watching. Counting heads. Timing patrols. Mapping exits. They picked the night of a heavy summer storm, figuring thunder would cover gunfire. They even had a route out through the docks where a boat would be waiting. They felt confident. They felt ready. They had no idea that Bear, who looks slow but thinks fast, had noticed the same strange van circling the block for 3 days straight. They didn't know that Ryder never sleeps when Amara is under his roof. They didn't know that the Hells Angels had already turned half of Swain's own soldiers into unwilling allies. And they definitely didn't know that Brooklyn, top to bottom, had chosen its side. Because while those 6 men were loading magazines and checking silencers, the city itself was waking up. A bodega cat rubbed against Ryder's leg with a GPS tracker tied in its collar. A grandmother on the 3rd floor texted strangers on roof, to a number she'd been given in case. A prospect pretending to be drunk in the alley counted heads and sent one word 6 to the group chat. The storm rolled in heavy and black just after 2 a.m. Lightning flashed over the water. Thunder cracked like Judgment Day. And family, if your pulse is racing right now, if you can feel what's coming, go ahead and hit that like button. Let's send this energy everywhere. Because the next chapter is fire and steel and a kind of justice the law books never wrote down. Drop a comment and tell me, when have you seen an entire community stand up and say not in our house? The rain is falling. The thunder is talking. And George Swain is about to learn that some debts you don't pay with money. Stay with me. The night Brooklyn fought back is next. Family, turn the lights down low and listen close, because this is the night Brooklyn almost burned, and the night it chose to shine instead. It's just past 2 a.m. A summer storm is hammering the city, rain coming down in sheets, thunder so loud it feels like God himself is slamming doors in heaven. Lightning keeps flashing white over the East River, turning every raindrop into silver fire. 6 men in black tactical gear slip out of a panel van 2 blocks from the Silver Spoon Diner. They picked the diner because the viral videos made them believe that's where the club still keeps the little girl at night. Big mistake. They move quiet, rifles up, night vision goggles glowing green. They cut the streetlights with a single suppressed shot. They kick in the back door expecting chaos and easy targets. Instead they walk into hell wearing leather. The first man through the door catches a chrome chain across the face before he can raise his weapon. Bear steps out of the shadows like a mountain coming alive and drives him into the tile so hard the floor cracks. The second and third try to fan out into the kitchen. Ryder is already there. One gets a cast iron skillet to the temple. The other finds Ryder's hand around his throat, lifted clean off the ground, slammed backward through the swinging service window into the dining room. Glass explodes like ice breaking. Outside, lightning flashes again and the parking lot turns into a battlefield. 4 more attackers pour in through the front, thinking numbers will win. They're wrong. The Hells Angels have been waiting 3 days for this moment. Every brother is exactly where he's supposed to be. Pool cues become spears. Bar stools become shields. A wrench the size of a forearm whistles through the air and drops another man before he can pull the trigger. It's loud, fast, brutal, and over in 90 seconds. Not a single biker fires a gun. They don't need to. These are men who grew up settling things hand-to-hand in alleys long before they ever wore the patch. Fists. Boots. Chains. A coffee pot used like a morning star. The storm covers every crash and shout so the block doesn't even wake up. When the thunder rolls again, 6 hired killers are on the floor, zip-tied, bleeding, unconscious, or praying. The diner smells like gunpowder that was never fired, spilled coffee, and ozone from the storm. Red and blue lights finally paint the windows. A dozen patrol cars screech in, officers jumping out with weapons drawn, shouting commands into chaos they don't understand yet. Then Ryder steps out the front door into the rain, hands raised, calm as Sunday morning. We're good, officers. Intruders are inside. Weapons on the table. We didn't start this. The sergeant in charge knows Ryder's face, knows the patch, knows the reputation. He steps past him carefully, and stops dead. Every attacker is accounted for, alive, disarmed. Not one biker with so much as a scratch deeper than a fingernail. The diner cameras, and 3 phones the brothers purposely left rolling, caught the whole thing in perfect clarity. The sergeant lowers his gun, rain dripping off his hat, and mutters the only thing that fits. Well, I'll be damned. While the police are cuffing the hired men and calling it in, something quieter, something holy, is happening in the back booth. Amara is there. She wasn't supposed to be. Lisa had taken her to a safe house, but the little girl woke up crying from a nightmare and begged to go where Uncle Ryder is. So Lisa brought her to the diner just to sit in the office for an hour, thinking the storm would hide them. Instead, Amara saw everything from the hallway, wide eyes, tiny hands over her mouth, but not screaming. She saw the men who broke her leg come back wearing masks. She saw the angels stand in the gap like a living wall. And when it's over, when the rain is still falling and the lightning moves on, Amara limps out on her crutches all by herself and walks straight to the sergeant directing the scene. Lisa tries to stop her, but Ryder gently holds her back. Some things children have to do on their own. Amara looks up at the officer, soaked curls stuck to her face, voice small but steady. Those men work for the same man who told the others to hurt me the first time. His name is Mr. Swain. He said if Auntie Lisa doesn't let him go free, they'll make sure I never walk again. The sergeant kneels, rain dripping off his hat brim. Sweetheart, are you sure? Amara nods and pulls a folded piece of paper from her pocket, one of the photos from a threatening envelope, the one with a note on the back in Swain's own handwriting. She had taken it from Lisa's purse that afternoon because it scared Auntie and I didn't want it to scare her anymore. She hands it over like she's handing over fear itself. Lisa is behind her phone, recording every word, tears mixing with rain on her face. The sergeant takes the photo, reads the note, and the look on his face says the case just became federal. Ryder stands behind Amara like a silent oak, one hand resting gently on her shoulder. And family, if you're crying right now, you're not alone. If your chest feels too small for what's in it, go ahead and hit that like button. Share this chapter with every person who needs to remember that evil only wins when good people stay quiet. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from tonight, because I'm reading every single one while the rain keeps falling on Brooklyn. Because tomorrow morning George Swain is going to wake up to handcuffs on his own wrists. And the entire city standing outside his glass tower holding candles for a little girl who refused to stay broken. The trial is coming. The silence in that courtroom is going to be louder than any thunder you've ever heard. Stay with me. We're almost there. Family, this is the morning Brooklyn held its breath. The courthouse steps are a river of cameras, microphones, and hand-painted signs that say things like, Amara is braver than all of US. And we ride with the angels. News helicopters circle overhead like metal vultures. Reporters who usually chase murders and scandals are openly crying on live television. Little girls in red dresses stand on the sidewalk holding flowers. Grown men in construction boots wipe their eyes with the backs of their hands. Inside, the historic courtroom, the same one where mob bosses and mayors have been sentenced, is packed so tight the fire marshal gave up counting. Every seat taken. People standing 3 deep along the back wall. The air smells like summer heat, nervous sweat, and the faint scent of motorcycle oil that somehow followed the brothers in. George Swain sits at the defense table in a $10,000 suit, smiling that shark smile he's practiced in mirrors his whole life. He leans back, arms crossed, whispering jokes to his lawyers. He still believes money and connections can buy silence. He still believes fear always wins. He has no idea the city just spent 3 weeks proving him wrong. The bailiff calls the room to order. Judge Carolyn Hayes, a silver-haired legend who has never once lost control of her courtroom, takes the bench. Her gavel falls once, sharp as a gunshot. All rise for the jury is barely out of his mouth when the double doors at the back swing open slow and deliberate. And the entire building goes still. Ryder Maddox walks in first, leather cut gleaming under the chandeliers, patch bright red and white against the dark. Behind him come 5 more angels, bear, tank, preacher, ghost, and Viking, all in full colors, boots polished for once, hands clasped in front of them like honor guards. Between them, holding Ryder's hand with her right and Lisa's with her left, is Amara. Red dress pressed and perfect. Cast freshly decorated with tiny Harley wings drawn in Sharpie by every brother in the chapter. Crutches painted chrome with red pinstripes. Hair in 2 neat puffballs tied with white ribbons. She is 7 years old and walking into the same room as the monster who ordered her bones broken. The silence that falls is so complete you can hear the air conditioning hum. Cameras that were clicking non-stop go quiet. Reporters forget to breathe. Even the court stenographer's fingers freeze above the keys. Swain's smirk falters for the first time. Lisa, robe off today, wearing simple black like a mother instead of a judge, walks tall, but every person watching can see her hand trembling where it rests on Amara's shoulder. They move down the aisle together, 6 leather giants, 1 tiny girl in red, 1 ant who would burn the world down before letting anyone touch her again, and the crowd parts like the Red Sea. The bikers do not sit in the gallery. They take the entire first row directly behind the prosecution table, arms folded, eyes forward, a living wall of protection. Only then does Amara let go of Ryder's hand. She hops up the single step to the witness stand on her own. The clerk swears her in, voice cracking halfway through. The prosecutor, a woman who has never once cried in court, has to clear her throat twice before she can begin. Amara looks tiny in the big wooden chair, but when she speaks her voice carries to the back row clear as church bells. They came to my school, she starts, small fingers gripping the rail. 2 men. Mr. Swain told them if Auntie Lisa didn't let him go free, they had to hurt me so bad I'd never walk again. When I tried to run, one of them picked me up and hit my leg against the stairs until it snapped. I heard it break. She points one steady finger across the room. That man right there paid them. The courtroom doesn't gasp. It doesn't dare make a sound. It just listens while a 7-year-old tells the truth in the same tone she'd used to ask for juice. Swain's lawyers try to object, relevance, foundation, leading the witness, but Judge Hayes shuts them down with a look that could freeze fire. Then comes the cross-examination. The defense attorney, slick hair, expensive shoes, voice dripping with fake kindness, stands and tries the oldest trick in the book: confuse the child, make her doubt herself. Sweetheart, are you sure it was my client who told those men to hurt you? Children sometimes mix things up when they're scared. Amara looks at him for a long second. I was scared, she says. But I'm not mixed up. He sent pictures of me to Auntie Lisa with words on the back. I can read. It said, finish the job or she never walks. I still have the picture in my pocket if you want to see. She pulls out the folded photograph, the same one she gave the sergeant in the rain, and holds it up for the whole room to see. The attorney sits down without another word. The prosecutor rests. And George Swain, man who has never once in his life been powerless, feels the floor drop out from under him. Piece by piece the rest falls apart. Phone records. Bank transfers. The construction foreman who took the stand shaking. The port officer who cried while he testified. The councilman who couldn't look at Amara while he admitted taking bribes. Every alibi Swain paid for collapses like cheap scaffolding. When the jury files back in after only 43 minutes, the foreman doesn't even sit before delivering the verdict. We find the defendant, George Thomas Swain, guilty on all counts. The gavel falls. And for the first time in recorded history, a Brooklyn courtroom doesn't cheer. It simply exhales. Swain's face goes gray. His knees buckle. Deputies catch him before he hits the floor, but his eyes stay locked on the little girl in the red dress who just took his empire away with nothing but the truth. Amara doesn't smile. She just turns in the witness chair, finds Ryder in the front row, and reaches both arms out. He is there before the bailiff can stop him, lifting her gently, cast and all, pressing her face into his shoulder while the entire room watches a giant in leather rock a child like she's the most precious thing on earth. Lisa stands beside them, tears falling free now, hand resting on Ryder's arm in silent, eternal gratitude. Behind them the angels rise as one, not in threat, but in salute. And family, if you are crying happy tears right now, if your faith in people just grew 3 sizes, hit that like button with everything you've got. Share this chapter with every person who needs proof that good still wins. Drop where you're watching from, because I'm reading every comment while my own eyes are blurry. Because tomorrow, the news will call it the trial of the century. But Brooklyn will always remember it as the day a little girl in a red dress walked into a courthouse flanked by angels in leather. And the silence that followed was louder than any victory shout ever could be. One more chapter left. the healing, the thank you that can never be big enough. And the moment Ryder teaches Amara how to twist the throttle on a Harley for the first time, safely, of course. Stay with me. We're going home. Family, come all the way in and close the door behind you. This is the last chapter, the one where the tears are happy and the sun stays out a little longer. The second the word guilty left the foreman's mouth, the courtroom finally let go. Not with screams. Brooklyn had been holding its breath too long for that. It was more like a dam breaking in slow motion. Sobs, applause, strangers hugging strangers, grown men dropping their faces into their hands and just shaking. The sound rose and rose until Judge Hayes gave up trying to gavel it quiet and simply let the room heal out loud. Lisa reached Amara first. She scooped her right out of the witness chair, cast and all, and held her so tight you couldn't tell where aunt ended and niece began. Amara's little arms locked around Lisa's neck and she buried her face in those familiar braids and whispered over and over, "We did it, Auntie. We did it." Then Lisa turned, still holding Amara, and walked straight to the first row. She looked at Ryder, then Bear, then every patched brother sitting there like quiet sentinels, and the ones the whole city had been taught to fear. Her voice was hoarse from crying, but every word carried. "Thank you for giving me my family back. Thank you for standing where I couldn't. I will never be able to repay you, but I will spend the rest of my life trying." Ryder just gave that small nod he does, the one that says more than paragraphs ever could. Bear's eyes were red. Preacher mouthed amen under his breath. And when Lisa reached out and pulled Ryder into the hug, Amara between them, the cameras caught the exact second a judge in pearls and a 1%er in leather became family for life. Outside, Brooklyn was waiting. The second those courthouse doors opened, the cheering started and it didn't stop for 3 city blocks. People 10 deep on the sidewalk. Flowers raining down. Little kids on shoulders waving tiny red and white flags someone had printed overnight. A brass band from a high school struck up "Ain't No Mountain High Enough," and the angels actually laughed out loud. Reporters tried to swarm Ryder for a statement. He waited until Amara was settled on his hip, safe in his arms, then leaned into the microphones just long enough to say 7 words that would end up on t-shirts, murals, and coffee mugs for years. "We didn't do it for praise. We did it because she asked for help." And that was it. He walked away with Amara waving like a princess and the whole chapter flanking them, engines rumbling low and proud all the way back to Flatbush. The weeks that followed were made of light. Amara's cast came off on a bright September morning. The doctor said the bone had healed perfectly, stronger than before, he joked. She took her first unassisted step in the clubhouse parking lot, and 20 grown men who have stared down guns and prison bars stood in a circle clapping like little kids when she made it all the way across without wobbling. That same afternoon the brothers unveiled their gift. They rolled out a tiny set of custom crutches. No, she didn't need them anymore, but they had started the project the day she first ran to them and refused to leave it unfinished. Chrome frame. Red and white diamond-pleated leather padding. Little spinning Harley wheels on the bottom so she could roll in style. Her name airbrushed in gold script down one side, and on the other. Property of nobody. Protected by angels. Amara ran her fingers over the lettering, eyes shining, then looked up at Ryder and said the only thing that mattered. "Can I keep them forever?" He knelt so they were eye to eye. "Forever's a good start, kid." Brooklyn made sure the story would never fade. A 10-story mural went up on the side of a building facing the BQE, Amara in her red dress, wings made of chrome, surrounded by 6 giants in leather whose faces look exactly like Ryder, Bear, and the crew. Underneath, in bold letters, "Sometimes angels wear leather." The diner changed its name to Amara's Silver Spoon, and hung a gold plaque by the door that just says "Thank you for running to us." Every year on the anniversary, hundreds of bikes do a slow ride from the courthouse to the diner, engines idling low so Amara, who rides in a sidecar now, helmet painted to match her old crutches, can throw candy to the kids lining the route. And the photograph everyone remembers most? The one that ended up on the cover of newspapers around the world? It's Amara, maybe 10 years old now, in a tiny leather vest Ryder had made special, no bottom rocker, just her name and a pair of wings. She's sitting on the tank of his Harley at a red light on Flatbush, both hands on the grips, Ryder's big hands gently over hers showing her how to twist the throttle. The sun is setting behind them, turning everything gold, and both of them are laughing like the whole world is brand new. That picture is still the wallpaper on half the phones in Brooklyn. Because some stories aren't just stories. They're the moments a city looks at itself in the mirror and decides who it really is. They're the moments a little girl learns that the scariest-looking hands can be the gentlest. They're the moments a judge learns that justice sometimes wears boots and rides thunder. And they're the moments a whole neighborhood learns that when a child runs to you crying for help, you answer. Even if you're the people everyone else was afraid of. Even if it costs you everything. Especially then. So family, if this story touched your heart the way it touched mine, if you needed this reminder that good people are still out there doing good things for no other reason than it's right, hit that like button one last time. Share this series with someone who's lost hope. Drop a comment and tell me your favorite moment. I'm still reading every single one through tears. And if you've been riding with us from the beginning, thank you. Thank you for letting me tell you about a little girl in a red dress who changed an entire city just by being brave enough to ask for help. This isn't goodbye. It's see you on the next ride. Because as long as there are kids who need saving, and hearts that still believe in angels, we'll keep telling these stories. Sometimes angels wear leather. And sometimes, just sometimes, they ride Harleys through Brooklyn, with a little girl on the tank, laughing all the way home. We love y'all. See you in the next one.